आज हम decode करेंगे a true culinary masterpiece. Welcome everyone. Today we're stepping high up into the majestic mountains of northern India to explore the incredible royal kitchens of Himachal Pradesh. We're zooming in on a dish called Himachali Chana Madra. But listen, we aren't just looking at a simple recipe today. We're actually undertaking a full-blown masterclass in flavor mechanics and traditional culinary science. So get ready, because what you're about to learn is going to completely change how you think about building flavors in your own kitchen.
Okay, let's dive into this. So think about it. In so many global cuisines, especially across the Indian subcontinent, the absolute holy trinity of a good gravy is onion, garlic, and tomato, right? If you just take those three ingredients away, most cooks would, well, they'd panic. The whole foundation is gone. But traditional Himachali cuisine actually thrives on this exact restriction. It creates a dish with unbelievable depth, richness, and umami. So how exactly do they pull this off? Well, the secret really lies in mastering fats, dairy, and spices.
All right, moving right along to Section 1, the Himachali Dam's Special.
To really grasp this dish, you have to understand its setting. This isn't just your, standard quick Tuesday night dinner. No way. This is the undisputed star of the Kangri Dham, which is a grand, traditional, and literally incredibly festive feast served at weddings and huge celebrations in Himachal Pradesh. It's a royal celebration on a plate, meticulously crafted to impress hundreds of guests at a time. And since we're totally skipping the standard aromatics, like the onions and tomatoes, everything rests on what I like to call the golden ratio. You start with 1 bowl of white chickpeas. To that, you add half a bowl of rich daisy ghee, that's clarified butter. But here's the absolute game changer. 2.5 to 3 bowls of yogurt, or dahi. That means we're using nearly 3 times as much yogurt as we are chickpeas. Since there's no onion-tomato paste to thicken things up, this massive volume of yogurt is exactly what transforms into our luxurious, velvety gravy.
Okay, Section 2, preparing chickpeas and spices.
Now, simply having the right ratio of ingredients, that isn't quite enough to make a masterpiece. In this masterclass, technique, preparation, and timing are literally everything. Let's break down the crucial prep phase, starting with our star ingredient, the chickpeas. You definitely want to soak them overnight so they hydrate properly. Then, you boil them with just half a teaspoon of salt for about 20 to 30 minutes. You don't want to drown them actually. Just use enough water to barely submerge them. And the golden rule here is all about texture. They absolutely must be mashable, but never ever mushy. If you take a boiled chickpea and press it firmly between your thumb and index finger, it should yield smoothly. But it should never turn into a mushy paste right there in the boiling pot. They need to proudly hold their shape for the final presentation. All right, now for a genuinely fantastic piece of culinary science. Before any heat is even applied to the pan, we have to prep the yogurt. You take your measured bowls of cold yogurt and you actually mix in your dry powdered spices right now. We're talking coriander powder, a really robust garam masala, and some earthy turmeric. Why do this while the yogurt is still completely cold in a bowl? Well, mixing dry, absorbent powders into cold dairy basically acts as a stabilizer. It's an ingenious pro tip that fortifies the protein structure of the yogurt. This totally prevents it from violently splitting or curdling later when it finally hits the blazing hot pan.
Now, what's really interesting about this list of whole spices, or kare masala, is the sheer complexity of it. We are talking bay leaves, cinnamon, mace, bright green cardamoms, sharp black peppercorns, cloves, cumin, fennel, which is also known as methi samph, plus smoky black cardamoms and chilies. I mean, wow. This heavy, incredibly aromatic, and diverse blend is exactly what replaces that savory depth normally brought by onions and garlic. Every single spice plays a critical role here. In fact, some traditional cooks even add a tiny little pinch of sugar at this stage just to amplify these warm, earthy flavors.
But to get the absolute maximum flavor out of these whole spices, you can't just lazily toss them into the pan. No, you need to gently crush them in a mortar and pestle first. You're not making a fine powder here. Actually, you're just fracturing the spices to awaken and release their native, highly volatile essential oils. Once they're bruised and crushed, you roast them on a very low flame in that half bowl of desi ghee. Roasting them low and slow ensures the fat absorbs every single fragrant note without scorching the really delicate spices. Let me tell you, the aroma filling your kitchen at this exact moment, it'll be nothing short of breathtaking.
Moving on to Section 3, crafting the yogurt gravy.
Let's see how this all builds into the most critical and honestly kind of the most intimidating part of the entire recipe for a lot of home cooks. So, the crucial point is you need to pay very close attention here.
If you take that bowl of spiced yogurt and confidently just dump it directly into boiling hot ghee and then walk away, you're going to ruin the dish instantly. The sudden thermal shock will cause the yogurt to split into this watery, granular, awful mess. So what is the Dom's secret? It's all about controlling the temperature. Turn the flame entirely off. Let the bubbling spiced ghee settle down, then add your cold yogurt. Mix it incredibly well so the fats and dairy integrate peacefully, and only then turn the heat back on. From that exact moment, you have got to stir continuously on a high flame until it hits a roaring boil. Whatever you do, seriously do not stop stirring. And this brilliantly illustrates the magic of that very process, the formation of Dane. As you continue to cook and stir the gravy, the water in the yogurt evaporates, reducing it pretty significantly. You'll eventually cover it and let it simmer for about 5 minutes. When you finally lift that lid, you want to see these beautiful small granules, which are called Dane, forming in the mixture, completely separated from the clear, golden ghee that'll start floating around the edges. That specific visual cue is the exact moment you know you've succeeded. Your raw yogurt has magically transformed into a rich, luscious, slow-cooked base.
Next up, Section 4, Combining for Perfect Flavor.
With our perfectly textured, mashable chickpeas standing by and our granulated, deeply spiced yogurt gravy sizzling away in the pan, it's finally time for the grand marriage of ingredients. But wait, there is one absolute non-negotiable rule before you mix them. You must use a strainer to remove all of the boiling water from your chickpeas. Shake them completely dry if you have to, because as the golden rule states, no water enters a pure yogurt gravy. Water is literally the mortal enemy of a fat and dairy-based reduction. If you introduce any excess water from the boiling pot right now, you will instantly dilute and totally ruin that incredibly thick, luxurious consistency we just spent so much time and effort building. Once you're absolutely certain they're properly drained, carefully fold your chickpeas directly into that thick, rich, granulated gravy. Give it a really gentle mix so that every single chickpea is generously coated in the spiced ghee and yogurt. Then, cover the pan securely with the lid, turn your heat down to a gentle low flame, and let it cook for exactly 5 minutes. Think of this as the resolution phase. We aren't really cooking the chickpeas anymore at this point. We're just allowing them to absorb and soak up all those complex, buttery flavors.
Finally, Section 5, Resting and Serving.
We are almost at the finish line, guys, but there are a few essential finishing touches that really elevate this madra from just a beautifully cooked dish to a truly royal, unforgettable feast. This is where you become the conductor, adjusting the final symphony of flavors. Taste your dish. You'll likely need to add about half a teaspoon of salt just to bring everything together. Crucially, pay close attention to the sourness of the yogurt. If it's just a bit too tart, add a tiny pinch of sugar. It won't make it sweet, I promise, but it will perfectly balance out the acidity. Finally, to make this an authentic shahi, meaning royal experience, stir in some sliced coconut or mixed dry fruits. This adds a wonderful, unexpected textural crunch and a really subtle sweetness that cuts perfectly right through the rich, savory gravy.
Now for the hardest part of the entire recipe. You have to step away from the stove. The absolute most important ingredient right now is patience. Turn the heat completely off, cover the pan, and let the entire dish rest for 10 to 15 minutes before you even think about serving it. Do not skip this. As the temperature slowly drops, the robust flavors of those whole spices fully permeate the chickpeas and meld perfectly with the fats in the yogurt. Once it's had time to rest, it's at its absolute peak, traditionally served alongside some steaming hot rice or fresh roti. Today we've seen how precise technique, careful temperature control, strategic spice blooming and fat, and the really unique science of stabilizing yogurt can create something incredibly complex and rich from a very limited list of ingredients. You don't always need to rely on that standard onion and tomato base to build spectacular flavor. So the next time you step into your kitchen, how will you use the science of yogurt and gently crushed whole spices to elevate your own dishes? It's definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the mastery of Himachali Chana Madra. And hey, keep experimenting with those flavors.